Taking it down there this summer.
Yeah, it'd be nice to turn it
We were in, I was in Maine for a few days.
that was a good
with
one.
grandson.
You can get out.
Took one fishing there, and then we went to Vancouver Island on Victoria for about 10 days. I haven't been back. Great.
6 o'clock p.m. This time, we're gonna call this regular city council meeting to order. We're got a certification of a quorum. I believe we got one absentee. Councilman Koblenz is out. So at this time, we're gonna do pledges. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
honor
The Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Would you pray with me, please? In the love of truth and in the spirit of our common God, let us unite for the service of mankind and the betterment of this community. Let us be thankful for all that God has given us, most especially His love, and be mindful of the inherent worth and dignity of every man. Amen.
Amen.
All right, moving on to item number 4, public hearing. Public hearing on utility rate increase as required by section 13.05 of the city charter. And number 2, public hearing on fiscal year 2025 City of El Campo budget.
Open the first one. It is 6:02.
6:02 p.m. On the public hearing on utility rate increases as required by section 13.05 of the city charter. Any discussion? Okay. Close it at this time. And now we're gonna open number 2, public hearing on fiscal year 2025 City of El Campo budget.
No one present, Mayor.
No one present? We'll close it at this time. Moving on to item number 5, public comments. At this time, any person with city-related business not scheduled on the agenda may speak to the city council in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. The city council is limited to making a statement of specific factual information in response to the inquiry or reciting existing policy, but may not discuss, deliberate, or take any action on any item. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. The issue may be placed on a future agenda for consideration. Yes, sir.
Can I comment?
Sir, if
Did
you'll
you-
state your name and address.
I'm Charles Rotahamo, 914 East Calhoun. I have rental property in that area. I thank the city for having the good people to pick up the limbs and brush with the hurricane and stuff. Barely getting that done, and this crew that is doing the fiber optic, making a mess of people's property. They've tore up my property, they've hit gas lines. They have got a round box in my yard now, and I've talked to them. Yes, they're gonna be there at 9 o'clock this morning. No, they're over here on Market Street now. They don't have no easement. They have no signs on their trucks. They have no business cards. They have no identification on them at all. They won't help us at all. They just lie to us.
All right.
I don't know who's supposed to be in charge of watching over them. Who do you go to?
Okay, we'll take a look into that. All right, any other public comments at this time?
No, sir.
I was just about to compliment the job they were doing.
All right. Moving on to item number 6, the consent agenda, approval of city council workshop, August 12th, 2024 at 5 p.m. And number 2, approval of city council regular meeting, August 12th, 2024 at 6 p.m.
Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
We got a motion. Anybody like to second it?
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor? Aye. Any discussion? Motion passes. Item number 7, items for individual consideration. Item number 1, Resolution R 2024-41, adopting a facility fee waiver policy.
Yeah, this is back in front of you. We put it in front of you at the last council meeting. We've refined the definition of fundraiser. There was some discussion at the DS regarding what that could mean, and we refined it to say, in the example of events not considered for a waiver, but not limited, are the following: fundraisers that do not yield additional tax as a qualifier for hotel motel tax appropriation. And the intent here is to say that if there is an event that brings enough people into town that would provide economic benefit to the city, then those would be considered for the fee waiver. I think we were specifically alluding to a particular baseball tournament. And so that is why we modified this definition. Nothing else changes on this policy. But at the direction of council, we made that modification.
Will that be your decision?
The decision is mine, but it can be appealed to council.
No, I just,
Yes, sir.
it don't need to come to us, is what
Yes,
I'm
sir.
saying. Good.
I have a
Good.
question, I don't want to muddy the waters, but out of curiosity,
Leroy, don't
how
want
many,
that ball.
how many hotel rooms would need to be booked to see?
Yeah, it seems like that's rather subjective, but obviously we would qualify it by, I would say we wouldn't count the number of hotel rooms, but the volume of the event. When they tell us there's gonna be 1,000 people in town, obviously that would be something we'd be interested. If it's 150 or 200, we would take that into consideration.
And along those lines, how are you gonna validate it? I mean, how are we
That's
gonna verify it? I don't know if this really addresses it. I think the bottom line is, I don't understand the resistance or hesitancy to just enter into an agreement with the Little League and just outline these two things, and it ends
Yeah.
this, and then keep the original fee waiver the way that you guys wrote it. I think that's really the sticking point.
I think we could have both, and I agree that we really need an agreement, a partnership agreement with all of our agencies that we participate with, including Northside and the museum and Little League. And if we're intending to waive these fees, then that needs to be brought before council early on and set that schedule in. But this would allow for things that we haven't thought of yet, events that come in. The ones that are coming to my mind right now are events like perhaps Juneteenth would come to us and ask for a waiver. And so would it qualify? Well, we'd ask them, how many people are you bringing into town? So that would be a great example of when we would need to pull this out. Is that a fundraiser though, or is that a community event? So these are the kind of questions we would need to start having the conversation about when the Crisis Center asks us to waive the fees. We're just seeing a lot of these requests coming in, so we really wanted a qualifier. But to your point, how do we validate that they have brought in funds? The only way that I can think of would be to look at the hotel motel tax and see if it increased. But that's challenging because we only get the month data, the quarterly data, and looking at the sales tax receipts to see if they go up. I guess if you don't, there's a clawback provision and you could go back. That's not outlined in here, so.
But that's what
This
I'm trying
point,
to avoid.
yeah.
That would overcomplicate it, and it really wouldn't be able to tell the true indication because, for example, a pipeline company coming in or someone coming in to do service work, they may be here that same weekend and occupy some of those, or maybe, for example, Lost Lagoon has a band or something, so you have more increase. So then we're putting the burden upon really the hotel motels and also the RV parks to verify it. I don't want to overcomplicate it. I just want to make it simple.
Well, we do have an application that is not in this packet that it includes what they're bringing to El Campo for our consideration for this. So that's where I was getting to the volume. That's not included in here. But this policy doesn't address, the checking in on them or following up or validating. It doesn't mention that anywhere in here. So I think at some point, you know, when we rent out parks and when we have these policies, we hope that they're honest. We take the application, we check on them and make sure the application's being followed. If the event doesn't turn out to be what we think it will be, we obviously will call them, and we will not be waiving the policy anymore for them.
I was gonna say, it's subjective, right? You do use the application process, but it's subjective. But burn me once, but don't burn me twice, you know,
Right.
type deal. And a lot of these are repeat, you know,
Yes.
community events, repeat fundraisers, stuff like that. They're not gonna do that.
Right.
I think it's fair giving them some rope, subjectivity wise. But anyway, just a comment.
Mayor, I'll make a motion, we approve Resolution 2024-41, adopting a facility fee waiver policy.
We got a motion on the floor. Second?
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Raise your right hand. All opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item number 2, Resolution R 2024-42, authorizing the renewal of the natural gas contract with Cognos for January 25th through December 2027, and authorizing the city manager to execute documents for said purpose.
Yeah, Bob Wooten, our energy consultant with Tradition Energies, contacted me this week and suggested that we go ahead and enter the contract for a 3-year period to save the city some money on the natural gas at the Aquatic Center. To contextualize this, we spend around $22,500 a year on natural gas at the Aquatic Center. The rate's gonna drop from 4.44 down to 4.02, or 4.04, I'm sorry, that's the ceiling. Because the market fluctuates every day, that's as high as we'll go. But I need your approval to enter into a contract. So staff's asking you for approval to recognize those savings.
So is that rate fixed
Yes, sir.
for 3 years?
Yes, sir. And he does shop the market. He looked at multiple vendors. I believe there were 4 that he shopped on our behalf.
If the rate goes down, will they negotiate to go down?
No, we're fixed.
So that was a recommendation that he gave you?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody like to make a motion on Resolution R 2024-42?
Mayor, I'll vote to approve Resolution R 2024-42 as presented.
I'll second it.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just have a question for Courtney. The $4.04 falls within lines of you being comfortable enough to commit to it for 3 years?
Yes.
If I'm reading this, it says not to exceed. so-
Not to exceed, so
So
he's
it could be-
actually
it could be
expecting,
lower.
yeah, if it was today, it would have been 4.02.
Okay.
So, yes, it could go down.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 3, Resolution R 2024-43, authorizing the allocation of additional funds up to $108,897 to the city's Community Development Block Grant Mitigation Program Contract number 22-05-016-252 with the Texas General Land Office.
Yeah, and this is at the request of the General Land Office. After we completed environmental, they determined that our acquisition, partially due to appraisals, we are gonna be requiring appraisals on all properties, but the acquisition budget needed to be increased. This doesn't mean you will necessarily be spending the 108. I can't guarantee you right now whether you will spend the 108, because we do know that some of these easements will be entered into agreements and will be granted to us without cost, but GLO does not care about those. they're not allowing us to factor that into this equation. So if one of the entities gives us an easement that's worth $88,000, we couldn't factor that into this. And so we have to pass this to continue. I just want to remind you that this grant is at the whole project's 14.8 million, so you're still looking at less than 2%. The way we will pay for this is we'll budget for it in 26 and 27. The last 2 years of the project, we'll split it out, and we'll budget for it in your operating budget. So I'm not asking for it to come out of fund balance. So we will make the appropriation, but I need a resolution with your commitment to do that. I still think it's a good deal to try to get this project done. Part of the issue is environmental took a really long time. We meet with GLO twice a month. There's a lot of frustration on staff side with how slow GLO moves. I will say that on the record. There's been a lot of, we'll talk to management, and then 2 months later, okay, we still don't have an answer from management. And so we've pushed and pushed and pushed, but with them dealing with that large tranche of money associated with Hurricane Harvey, this is what's happening. And so we submitted for the grant in 2020. It's not surprising that the costs have escalated. They are not increasing the grant, though. They're gonna keep us within those confines, so that's why we're asking you to consider this tonight.
Where did that number come from?
That number came from the General Land Office. They pulled that number from our engineers' data from the most recent acquisition budget. Is that correct, Kevin? Am I misrepresenting that? No? Okay. Yeah.
I'd just like to make a motion.
Okay.
I move that we consider resolution R 2024-42 as stated.
43.
43.
I'm sorry,
43.
2024-43, correct.
We got a motion. I'd like to second that.
Second.
We got a motion and a second.
I have a question.
Yep.
To confirm, Courtney, you said that the GLO reviewed what our engineer said, and they told us that we were short.
Mm-hmm. On the acquisition side and the acquisition part of the budget.
And one thing, Courtney, when are we planning on implementing this project? Or we don't have all the permitting in place with the GLO yet, or? what's-
They're waiting on this resolution before they let us loose on acquisition.
Wow,
Tell them the
Yeah.
acquisition cost would have been as expensive if they didn't take
That's
the
what-
time.
The comments
that's what I'm
been made.
wondering when.
The comment's been made over and over and over and over again. I think Renee and Kevin can both attest to and honestly, PMI, our grant administrator, has constantly pinged them to try to get this ball rolling.
Understand.
Thanks for your due diligence. It's frustrating.
I know the challenge is there.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes. Thank y'all. Item number 4, Resolution R 2024-44, awarding sanitary sewer rehabilitation services for South Wharton Street, FM 653, to Ramrod Utilities LLC, and authorizing the city manager or their designee to execute all related documents to this effect.
Yeah, we're trying to get these projects off the ground, Steve. We're trying to make them happen. You issued this debt in February, so we're moving on this. This is with Ramrod Utilities. They're in the audience. You've got Daniel and Huey. They're working right now on our CDBG grant project on flax, cotton, corn, and rice. I've heard that your Flax Street went wonderfully. It was beautifully done. Thank you for your hard work there. We also have awarded the North Wharton Street to them as well. So this would be through TIPS. We didn't competitively bid this because we like their pricing. It's $900,885.58. I'll remind you that we preliminarily budgeted, we estimated this, our engineering estimate was $1.8 million, $1,849,550. That's a substantial saving. Right now, we're reluctant to tell you what we'll do with those funds. We do have a plan, but we want to see where the town and country bids land before we price out those or present those projects to you. We will be presenting those to you once we have those final numbers. We recommend that you award this tonight to Ramrod Utilities. And I apologize that the amount isn't listed up there, but it is included in the resolution. So you just need to make a motion for the resolution.
Mr. Mayor, like to move that we approve Resolution R 2024-44.
We got a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor to approve? Motion passes. Thank y'all. Moving on to item number 5, discussion and consideration providing direction for the fiscal year 25 proposed budget.
Yeah, now the main event, right? Don't leave. No, it's fine, Daniel. We wanted to give you time to give us feedback about the budget prior to the adoption, which is scheduled for next month. I'll remind you that the budget adoption is scheduled for 9/9 as is the tax. What we don't want to happen is that the budget passes with a 4-3 majority, and then the tax rate that supports the budget fails, because you would immediately need to amend your budget. And so we'd kind of rather work that out right now. If there's changes that need to be made to this budget because you're having heartburn over anything, and I know some of you are, we want to go ahead and work through that and have you give us direction so we can make that change. A reminder, this is your budget, it's not staff's budget. We make the recommendation, but at the end of the day, the choices are yours, and we will respect that. Some of the things we've heard are reflected in the really brief PowerPoint we have provided for your, I was going to use the word enjoyment, but really that's not what's going to happen right now. If for your information, if you want to pull it up, and Brittany, I don't know if you want to come up. I'll walk you through it, but she'll be there for questions and maybe to click on the next one. Kaylee, if you don't mind advancing. Here we go. So let's start out by explaining why. First, I have said this to a council member, and I'll probably say it to you guys in a bad way, I guess. I don't know if we articulated it clearly enough, but the reason your tax rate is going up is because of that 2024 CO. That is for Town and Country. That is the debt portion for the general fund for Town and Country. It is $282,000. You need $220,000 to balance this budget and tax increase. Is that correct? Is it 220? Is that the number?
222.
222. That said, if you didn't have those COs on the books and you didn't have to make that payment next year, we would not be talking about a tax increase. So we just wanted to make sure that you understood that this is probably the driver. On the same token, at the time that we were issuing this debt, we made statements like, maybe you can get away with this because the sales tax will hold strong. It hasn't. It hasn't the last 2 months. It's dropped over $200,000. We don't have the confidence in it. Our interest rates, we're not confident in leaving them. For one, you wiped out half your fund balance with Barrel, and for two, which we should get back most of it. But for two, interest rates, the economy, it's an election year, so we can see what will happen there. So we just wanted to let you know. I mean, you can see the good news on there, that I guess the good news, it's not reflected because you don't have the future years, but that stays pretty steady coming up. So you won't have a big surprise next year where you have another $282,000 increase. Next year's budget jumps. It's really close to that number. So next slide, please. Okay, we were asked about personnel on Friday. There's a $650,000 increase in personnel, and that is not due to wage increases, not all the way due, it's partially due, but it's due to $280,000 of it belongs to these 4 positions. Now, these positions weren't in the 24 budget. We adjusted them at mid-year, but they were not, if we're comparing apples to apples, last year's budget, adopted budget, to this year's proposed budget, that's where we're getting. I know you've amended it. We wanted to let you know how many people are getting 2%. There's 11 people on that list. These are your high performers. These are your highest paid employees. The average on that is a $1,696 increase. And then the rest of your employees fall in the 3 to 4%. It is tiered. The 2% are anyone over 75,000. 3% is 50 to 75, and 4% is anyone under 50,000. Just to put that in perspective, City of Wharton's looking at 3% across the board, and the county is looking at 6% for admin clerical and 9% for first responders. We can't chase that. We don't have the tax gains that the county had. So that hurt us. Next slide, please.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, sure.
Those
Yeah.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but that IT director position directly offset an expense, correct?
It will. It hasn't yet. He will be offset when we pull out completely with the purple guys, and he's working on transitioning us there, but we're not there yet.
Okay, and how much more will it cost for him versus what we were paying in IT services?
It will be a savings when we pull out of their contract completely.
The fiscal services coordinator, will we see something similar to that?
You're not going to see any savings on the fiscal services coordinator. We asked for this position because the budgets have increased significantly, particularly with the grant money we have. And this fiscal services coordinator has allowed us to advance rapidly on some of the things that were taking a lot of time that we were getting back. I mean, we're on top of our game now in finance with the help, and we needed backup for your finance director. So you won't see that there. But you've also got the code enforcement position. This is in a direct response to us hearing that we need to address blight. We don't enforce our codes. So I said it today at a meeting. Mr. Hancock said that's one person to designate only for that purpose. So one neck to get your hands around when code isn't enforced. And then the parks maintenance worker, you heard Kevin say at the last council meeting, we added a park in 2025 online, but we haven't added any positions in decades. So you have a crew of 5 managing over 100 acres. And yes, we could outsource some of that, but we'd still argue that you need this position with that to make that happen, because the agreements with outsourcing just the bypass isn't enough. So that's why we asked for that position. We're not asking to outsource it yet, because we feel like with this position we can handle all of that. Next slide.
If we would outsource that, it would not only save on personnel, it would save on wear and tear on equipment also.
It definitely would save on your mowing equipment. We can agree to that, yes.
So I brought up this about the positions, just so council knows. And my question was, is this the final budget? And the reason I ask why is it the final budget is because those 2 positions were not included in last year's budget, but fairly quickly they were added. The same thing, we issued some debt for equipment. And what I don't want to do is, if we know that we need personnel, they need to be included from day one. You can't push it down to keep a rate at a certain level. They need to be included, because how I feel is, it was a little bit deceptive on, if we really needed these folks, then why didn't we include them in the budget?
Yeah, and
Does that help?
I do agree with you. We need to, if we're going to include them, we should include them for the whole year instead of
Yeah.
bringing them midterm. The reason that these 2 positions, particularly the IT director, a lot of what drove that was we lost the consultant that we had been using for 2 decades. He got out of the game, and they switched us to a company out of Tennessee, and then they switched us to a company out of Washington, D.C. And so a lot of that was driven mid-year. That's why you saw that one. And on the fiscal services, we realized that finance there was a need for another person there, because the payroll specialist is going to transition to spend so much time with HR. But your point is fair. If we're going to do this, just set the rate where it needs to be, so you're not looking like, well, for one, you're not changing it midstream. But I did let Mr. Ward know that no budget's final. There will be amendments throughout the year, but valid that we shouldn't be, in these amendments, these positions should be presented at the budget cycle. I agree with you on that one.
Or at least let us know the comment. The same thing with equipment. I mean, if we know that we need some equipment and maybe we're able to purchase that later, if we have extra sales tax or we get a refund on something, at least we know when we've approved the budget, we know it's there, that
Right.
it could come. But it wasn't included because we didn't have it, or we chose not to increase the rate.
Right.
Then it doesn't feel like, okay, why did we do it this way when we really needed it this way?
I understand your point.
That's all.
I understand your point. And we've philosophically tried to do these one-time equipment purchases. We're actually we will be recommending that again this year if there's the opportunity to buy police cars mid-year. So that would be if there were excess sales tax. So we could earmark the funds, and if it's not there, then we don't buy it. That's a little more honest. But
It's really not an earmark, it's just, we know that we're gonna move forward with
But
those
if
things.
we don't have it,
If under this circumstance, we're gonna move forward, because we issued debt for that. It was it was a strip paver,
right,
is what we bought.
mhm,
Well, we knew that we were gonna need that strip paver, but we kinda pushed it down the road.
mhm,
And it's police cars, here you go, chief. Police cars need to be in the budget.
yeah, we don't
Not-
have any in the budget.
I know, they need to be in the budget because we need police cars, and it shouldn't be whether we have a good sales tax year.
Yeah, we were trying to keep that rate as low as possible.
I visited, corresponded with Courtney about the two new positions. I'm having a real hard time to vote to increase taxes and add two new positions. I understand we need them, but there's also a lot of people that don't need a tax increase. Well, if we did not add those two positions, could we lower the tax rate?
No, you'd still be looking at an increase, it just wouldn't be as high.
Are you talking about the first two positions?
You
No, but
could,
I'm
you
saying-
could lower what you're increasing.
Yeah,
But
that's
you'd
what I'm
still,
talking
you'd
about.
still have a tax increase. Yes, sir.
How
I'm
much-
sorry I didn't answer that
How much would you
correctly.
lower it without those bottom two?
Talked about this.
We need 222,000, is that what you
Right.
said? And what's a penny?
Um,
68,
88.
86?
No, I think it was 87 or 88,
Call it 85.
yeah.
You're talking about the bottom two.
Yes.
We haven't, and as far as code enforcement, excuse me, but I don't want me to interrupt your answer, but as far as code enforcement is concerned, we've had people that have been responsible for code enforcement.
We have.
We had a couple of gentlemen at one time, and we had one that was working under Mrs. Hasselmeyer, and so why is that a new position?
They're still here because they're doing dual roles. They're acting as inspectors as well as code enforcement. And so their focus is twofold, and you might be better able to answer that question than me.
That's what I was gonna get to.
I don't want to misrepresent what your staff is doing.
Good evening. Courtney is correct. So our team, we had two code enforcement officers and one in training, and the one in training is no longer in our department. So we have the two code enforcement officers that are left. They are doing dual roles, so they participate in your plan reviews, your inspections for any new construction or regular projects that are going on at people's houses and around town. So they do a little bit of both.
Okay, so it's not really a new position. We're already paying people to do that?
No, it will be a new position.
So you're gonna hire an another person?
So what happened in our department is, after the previous person left and I came in to play, we brought in a new building official. And we had two inspectors that do code enforcement and building inspections. Not the same as your building official. There's building, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, one's in training for plumbing. And then our permit clerk was training to be a code enforcement officer full-time as well. And then the plan was to potentially ask for a part-time permits person, and then that role changed because that person that we've been training left the department. And so our new permit clerk is not someone who has a background in code enforcement or is training for that. So we need to make up for that lost person with regards to our.
We were
code
paying that
enforcement
person that we've lost.
work. I'm sorry?
We were paying the person we lost that was in training and was
We were,
gonna
and
be
that,
responsible.
that person's salary shifted over to the permit clerk that we had to bring in that place.
So we're still adding an employee.
Yes, sir.
It would be a new position, yes, but we would need it role-wise.
A new position and a new person.
No, we're asking for a code enforcement officer.
Had she stayed that we'd be asking for an additional position?
It would have been a permit
It
clerk.
would've
Yeah.
been a permit clerk.
Yeah.
At the-
Not
yes,
just
that was-
not just a title, but a new individual that would be on the
Right.
payroll.
At this point, yes, yeah.
But getting back to my question, how much could we lower the tax rate if we did not add those two new positions?
Renee, do you have we would be guessing at this point, instead of giving you an exact amount.
Well,
Let her do her magic. Oh, go ahead.
Well, 222,000 minus 56,000 minus 44,000 divided by 88,000. It's $1.39.
Versus how much?
2.6.
2.6 cents.
Yeah, so it's $1.21.
What I was,
Penny 21.
what I was getting at,
Sorry, penny 21, yeah.
it's, I just kind of wrote a few points down to what a tax increase actually does. A tax increase will make it harder to attract new business in El Campo. A tax increase might encourage existing businesses to move out of the city limits. A tax increase will make it harder to qualify for a mortgage. A tax increase will make the current mortgage payment go up because of an escrow shortage. A tax increase will hurt senior citizens on a fixed income. I know some senior citizens own their home and they're frozen. There's a lot of senior citizens that rent, and they'll be getting a double whammy because the property values went up courtesy of the CAD, and then a tax increase on top of that will add to that. So they'll get, senior citizens that don't own, that rent, will be getting hit with a double whammy. Now, I just kind of want to ask the rest of the council this: are those 2 new jobs more important than the points I just brought up? That's just my thoughts, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, if you're asking, yes, the code enforcement officer is important to me.
Yeah, I know. I know, everybody's got their priorities, I understand that.
Well,
We wanted you to have the opportunity to discuss this rate and how you feel about it, and Mr. Ward's thoughts on this too, so that's why we added this item.
Yeah, I knew.
My thing is, and I've said this before, is how are we gonna measure the effectiveness or lack of effectiveness of these new positions? So if we bring on a new parks person, for example, we're gonna stay up on all the mowing, or we're gonna stay up on it. Same thing with the code enforcement. Are we gonna be able to be more proactive? Are we gonna be able to further advance what we're doing now? How do we measure that? Because at the end of the year, let's say that we come back next year and the same thing is presented. We needed another code enforcement, or we needed a new parks guy. So where's that? And then to Councilman Hodges' point, our growth, unless something changed from the last CAD, whatever values, was fairly stagnant. And it was fairly stagnant at the county level as well. And I don't foresee any large investments coming in to bump up the sales tax significantly, bump up the new tax rate. So that's my concern as well, is then we're stuck with these numbers, and we have to make them work. I would disagree. I mean, I'm not worried about the tax rate. I think the rate has to support the budget. I mean, if you keep going down, you're staying here.
I'd like to add something to it. I know, we're all worried about, the rate, and, it's gotta match, and it's gotta make things work, whatever, but, and I understand, Mr. Hodges, Councilman Hodges, where you're at with all that also, but, our city manager, Courtney, she's very, what's the word I want to use? She's very confident, and she's very, I lost my mind there for a second. But anyway, I believe in her. If she says we need a tax increase, it's not just because she's making it up. Her and her staff really think that we need a tax increase. I will support it. And, I know it makes it tough for, just like Mr. Hodges said, on different things, whatever. The community's growing. We've got a lot of things that we're wanting to do. And, we're sitting here as a council. We've got a great council sitting here all together. And we have to make things better for this community. And it takes things like this to make things better for this community. I would like to see us support our city manager and her team, and to make this work. We're trying to make El Campo a better place. There's things that we do not want to do, but there's things that we need to do to make the right choices and make the community get better, and for things to happen. So I'll just leave it at that.
I have a question. Mr. Hodges stated that perhaps a tax increase would drive business out of town.
Yeah.
Can you guys give us an idea of what, they have to go somewhere, they gotta go to another town.
Yeah.
So. can
El
we get
Campo
an-
Cycle Center just went outside the city limits.
And that's fine, I mean, you can buy land outside of town if you want, but, you know, only if somebody's selling it. But my question is,
Well,
how do we compare?
I would argue that our utility rates are so low compared to other cities that we're not, by far the savings in utility rates offsets the potential tax increase. And I just want to remind you that the school's tax rate is $1.05. We're talking about 46 cents here, well, possibly 45 cents here. So we're not the largest component of the tax rate, even though we get the most attention in the newspaper. The school board has elected to leave the tax rate the same for the last 3 years effectively, holding the rate, which we need for the education of our students and we support. But we're not the largest component of that tax bill. We're just a piece of it. Now, we do have a duty to our citizens to make sure that, to your point, Steve, that they're getting what they pay for, and that can take place in the form of providing you quarterly reports with key performance indicators and outputs, so you know that these people are actually producing. Because I agree with you, we need to be accountable for that. Yes, we do benchmark our tax rate. I don't think you have that readily available right now, but we can absolutely provide that at the next meeting, where we compare our tax rates to cities our size and cities located near us, so you can see if they're relocating to a city. I think to Mr. Hodges' point, but if they're locating outside the city, then they're not having to pay the tax. And so I haven't noticed a mass exodus, but we haven't raised the rate in years, and it's very valid to say that increasing these rates is a hardship to some people. But there's things we've done to mitigate that. You mentioned the senior freeze. So seniors over 65 that have frozen their properties won't be affected by this increase. In addition, they get 20% off of their water. So we recognize the need to help people out. But we are asking for the 2 cents. We don't think these positions are directly to blame for it. We at this point, you know, it's like, which one? To your point, Mr. Hodges, yes, if it looks like based on Blake's numbers, and what Brittany's saying is if you kill these two positions, your rate will only go up a penny rather than the 2 cents. We'd really want to refine that number to make sure that we have that completely accurate. Brittany's not going to want to tie down to that number right now without having all the digits behind it. But there's ways to do that, and that's why we open the dialogue for this conversation today. To sort of give us direction. Do you want us to kill these positions? Do you want us to leave it in? Do you want us to look at changing that rate and where it is? We have heard from council that you don't want a tax increase, and so we've budgeted for that, but at the detriment of our roads and at the detriment of deferring maintenance to the point where we have lines in the ground that are rotting. We have streets that are failing, and so you guys took the big position, bold position that I admire in February, and you issued the debt, and now we have to pay for it.
That's the very reason I didn't object to the utility rate increases,
Yeah.
because that's a user fee.
Yeah.
A user fee is different than a tax increase.
Sure.
A user fee you don't have to use. You don't have to pay
That's
for
right.
it. Yeah,
Use a bucket.
yeah.
No, he's right, though.
That's why I didn't
change your
object
behavior.
to the
Sure.
others.
Keep in
Mr. Mayor, may I
mind,
make a comment?
Yes, sir.
I support the 2 cent increase we're discussing for this year. And I know there's, we have necessary things we have to get done, and we should get done to improve our city and to maintain our city. And I think this is required. But while we're discussing the tax rate, I'd like to also suggest that sometime during this year, we have a serious discussion about the tax valuations. I have a hard time believing that the Central Appraisal District came up with a value for the city of El Campo that's only 1 or 2% above last year.
That's correct.
And at times when I have gone to the appraisal district and had discussions with them, I will be comparing a little bit of research that I've done on valuations of one piece of property versus another, and I'll say, you know, we've talked about this for a couple of years. Y'all haven't changed these values that are drastically different. And it's, well, we just haven't gotten around to that yet. But it looks to me like there's a lot of stuff they haven't gotten around to in a while. And I've had conversations with several of y'all about that. And it just seems to me like we ought to somehow press for some change in attitude at the Central Appraisal District Administration Office.
So I have some data. Brittany had sent me, I had asked for what our values were. I think I got, what, like 16 or 17 through present? And this year was not an anomaly. That's what I
No,
expected to
it
see.
wasn't.
So we had actually decreased in previous years.
Yeah.
We only average roughly a 5.75% increase year over year. But
Except last year.
one year it's just like anything else. 1 year it's 13% up, and then it's 3% down, and then it's 6% up, and then it's 1% down. And so it averaged at 5%. Again, I expected to see an anomaly, right? I mean, nothing's getting any cheaper. You can spot check right here and look at 4 different properties in 4 quadrants of town. Nobody got cheaper. And so how we only grew 0.7%, I don't know. And unfortunately, as I talked
Well, I really appreciate your serving in that capacity also and advising us. And, you know, when you told me, I know this isn't necessarily a real thankful job, but that's a hateful job. But when you told me that they've had a new computer program that they haven't gotten around to figuring out how to use for the last couple of years, that's alarming to me.
Yeah.
Well,
She says-
I mean, whatever it is, unfortunately, Brittany had said, we have to trust these values.
Yeah, we have to stick with it obviously for this year, but that might need some changes in there. I mean, that
And again,
that solar field mistake is beyond understanding.
well, but that doesn't impact us. And
No, I know it doesn't affect us, but I mean, it just kind of shows you what's going on there. If somebody's not paying attention to
it's definitely
details.
something that, they created a fiasco for themselves.
Thank you for what you do.
I don't want anybody's property taxes to increase. I don't want your values to go up. I mean, I fight every year because I think she's wrong. But she doesn't always agree with me, and she doesn't agree with anybody else, and everybody's goes up.
Yeah.
So how are we showing 0.7% increase? Every person that goes and disputes their value comes back out mad. It didn't go their way.
Quit going.
That's true.
Anyway, I just think it's something I might well try to discuss this year
I think we should-
sometime.
We should decide a tactical way to do it, because I don't exactly know the best way to approach it.
Do we have to be a member of the Central Appraisal District? Well, because I served, and it was not a pleasant experience. And we did,
We understand.
I sourced it out, and for what they pay every year, the budget, and this was 8 years ago, whatever, you could replace the whole county for that.
Yeah.
And we're doing it in thirds. So I think you're missing some of the things. And if we could opt out, I think it'd be advantageous to opt out, but.
Good point.
Mayor, just to comment on on what we have in front of us here, the majority of the increase that we're talking about here is obviously the debt that we've put forth to try to make things better. Obviously, emergency things that we've had to do for the community, i.e. sewer lines, other things that we've had to do. So definitely support that. As far as the 2 positions that we have there, I mean, code enforcement and things like that, if Courtney and her staff believe that they need that to support the code enforcement, then there's some things there within this community that could help lower the costs of different things. If you're improving your infrastructure, you're improving your code enforcement, you're making things safer for the community, then that's less strain on whether it's fire departments or police stations, other things that you're having events or safety events in town. So there's some potential benefits there. Maybe it's a stretch, but anyway, there's some potential there. Parks maintenance and things, it has the ability to attract people to El Campo. You're talking about taking care of overpasses in different areas and stuff like that. I mean, you want the community to be presentable. I always something always spoke to me when we're talking about El Campo is the billboard that says "close enough." I don't know why. That one's always been the one that spoke to me because I'm one that I drive to work and out of the community, but I live here because it's a nice place to live. and there's a lot of people that do that. So there's things out there. I'll shut up, but I support the increase in what trying to do in order to balance the budget that you have there.
I'll say one other thing, the city citizens voted for some expenditures. I don't know how much they add up into this year's budget, but for that 2 cents, I would think that you could say that the city citizens voted to approve that. I mean, they didn't think that money was coming out of thin air.
Yeah, that's the public safety building and the fire truck. Both of those were voter approved debts.
Right.
Yeah.
And we did not raise the rate for the fire truck.
Ma'am?
We did not raise the rate when they approved the fire truck.
No.
We were able to absorb it and then.
No, I understand, but, you know, when we do get extra things like that, somebody's got to pay for them, and citizens vote to do it.
That's correct.
They can be reminded.
Yep. So, anybody else got anything?
Okay.
Well, appreciate everybody's input on it, and for sure, like we said,
Is there another slide?
No.
Oh,
Oh, well, yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot you had how many more slides do you have?
I think it's.
So the-
for this.
Yeah,
go
there's the rates. No, go back to that slide because this is important. We took out the park improvements. This was presented to you in July. It was for shade structures. It was 50,000. We got the feeling from the group that wasn't a priority right now. That's a want, not a need. And we moved it over to seal coating because, as we've been reminded, we're not gaining any ground. Of course, and I've heard, and I agree with you, that 50,000 doesn't really get you anywhere, but at least it's something to go towards rising prices. We had $50,000 in the budget for parking lot improvements, but we did not have the health insurance increase in the budget when we presented it to you. And we have since learned that we have a 9.5% increase. We'll be bringing that to you September 9th. So we've shifted the parking lot improvements. Now, these are things, Steve, that we could do with one-time infusion of excess. If we have the money, then we can bring it back to you and you can consider it as a one-time. I get your point. Let's not do the reoccurring. Let's bring the one-time back. And so that would be that. And then we identified that the parks cert pay was in there. It was a mistake. It shouldn't have been in there. And so we moved it over to software support. We have a lot of licenses for Adobe. And I don't know if you're aware of how expensive this has gotten, but it is incredibly expensive. We all use it every day because we have to e-sign all of our documents, and we're sort of moving paperless direction. And so we've shifted these three things. We want you to see what these are because we don't want to make changes to the budget that you're not aware of. In addition, we are working towards getting another hard copy of the budget, so you'll be able to see that, and we'll outline these changes in that document as well, so you can see exactly what we've changed. But these are the only changes we've made since we talked to you in July. And then that last slide outlines the rates. I'm sorry.
I just want to make a point so that we clearly, so that it's articulated, so that there's no confusion. Since 2018, our payroll was, say, $7.2 million. It's increased to $10.1 million. You know, that's what, $2.9 million we've increased, and we've gone from 112 to 124 folks. So we have made the adjustments. It's a 29% increase, give or take, whatever. We've made the increases to compensate our people.
Yeah.
Okay? Of that, I'm not going to dive into it, but the top 7 have really increased compared to the bottom 7. But my point is, since 2018, we're still spending $400,000 on paving. And that is why our community looks the way it is. We haven't made any adjustments. And to Kevin, if it's 35% more, it costs are 35% more. Now he's only working with 65%. So actually, our roads have been, I don't want to say ignored, but really they have. And what we've been allocating is going here. I want to say, I think that many of our salaries are where they need to be.
Okay.
We have got to figure out a way to start allocating resources to our roads. We saw what happened with the water lines and the sewer lines. The sewer line really got exacerbated just because of a break. We didn't have any plans to do anything with it. And that's my struggle right now, is that we are increasing the budget, we're increasing payroll, we're increasing benefits, but we're not increasing services. And that's the hardest part. As I said, I'm not worried about the rate. The rate is what it will be. I'd love to go down every year, but you can't. But things are more expensive. Maybe they're gonna get less. All of this is a moot point if we have economic development or we have a big, something comes in. But we can't ever count on that. That's our house money. We get to play with that. So I just wanna make a point that I think in many ways, we've really adjusted things. The last thing I'll say is, I don't wanna compare us to Wharton and Bay City and Rosenberg. When you're comparing apples, you gotta compare them to apples, and there's differences between, some may have, more retail or more commercial or whatnot, but our rates are what they are.
Yeah. Fair.
Just because someone's $100 and we're 30, does that mean that they're more than us? Maybe they have more debt, maybe they have more responsibilities, I don't know. So I just think we need to take care of El Campo, make us the best El Campo that we can, and progress us instead of holding the line.
You're right about our streets. I mean, we put off redoing that town and country area for
10 years.
10 years or more,
Yeah,
you know.
and then you guys
it's-
put the
It
bullet.
comes back to haunt you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that comment right there drove us to move the money over, but it's still only 450,000, so you're still behind, to his point, and he's right. We need to prioritize making sure those streets, can get taken care of, and our citizens deserve that, so we recognize that. But we also have to be mindful of our limitations on the tax rate. So unfortunately, yeah. Steve, when I hear you say that our rates are where our salaries are where they need to be, are you suggesting we don't do any raises?
No, I would say the top 7 are where they are, where they need to be. When in 2018, we were paying approximately, with benefits, $738,000 to the top 7, which is an average of 105. And then in 2024, with benefits, it was $1,043,000. That's $149,000 average to the top 7, whereas the remaining average was $67,000. That's a $54,000 difference. So I think that
I'm the outlier in that one, by the way.
Yeah,
If you look at the city manager's salary from 2018 to 2024, which is only approved through council, I'm the outlier, which is
Yes, you are.
shifting this number it's skewing it quite a bit.
Well, actually, your increases haven't been as much as, say, the Public Works Public Works utilities. They're up 35%. They went from $70,000 to $100,000. See, that's where I have a challenge with the budget is we've made those adjustments to those folks, and what are we seeing? What are the results? How are we measuring this? And then we sit here and we say that we haven't adjusted our roads, the money for our roads in 10 years, 12 years, whatever it is. We're falling behind, but we're staying up there. I'm not so sure we're staying on the remaining people, but this is based upon information that I asked for and I received. I don't have 2025's information to compare, but
So what we voted to cap it was the
Well,
point.
47, but
Would-
to support the budget, you only need the 46.
That's what we voted last time.
Was the 47 to go up, that would be the cap.
Right.
But we don't need that much. We need 46,606 if you're leaving the 2 positions in there, and everything alone, you're not adding to anything. There you go. That's all of it.
All right, any further discussion?
All right. We'll carry on and see what that vote is on the 9th.
On the ninth, right.
It gets easier from here, folks. I promise.
I want to thank everybody's input on all this.
there was no
Like I
yelling.
said, it takes a lot of people to, to get this figured out. And like I said, I want to, Courtney, I want council to give her support. She's very conservative, and if she didn't think that we need it, she wouldn't be asking for it. So Anyways, I want to thank everybody for all their input. All right, moving on. Appointment to members, of members to a Comprehension Plan Advisory Committee. Mr. Hancock, Mr. Hodges, do y'all have anybody to appoint at this time?
I'll appoint Shannon Crabtree and Cody Goins.
All right, Mr. Hancock?
I'll appoint Richard Myatt, Dick Ramsey, and Mary W. Johnson.
Okay,
First group.
I believe the appointments have been filled. So anyways, at this time, we're going to move into item number 8. We'll be going into a closed executive session at 7 o'clock.
Got it. Thank you, Matt.
Green.
All right, at this time, no action from closed session. And at this time, this meeting is adjourned.
Shannon had no faith in this taking any action.
And no